Thursday, and that means story time at Washington Carnegie Public Library. So before we start, let's sing our story time song, okay? If you're ready for a story, clap your hands. If you're ready for a story, clap your hands. If you're ready for a story and you really want to show it, if you're ready for a story, clap your hands. If you're ready for a story, find a seat. If you're ready for a story, find a seat. If you're ready for a story and you really want to show it, if you're ready for a story, find a seat. Our poem today is by AA Milne, and it's from a collection of both of his poetry books, When We Were Very Young and Now We Are 6. And it's called In the Dark. I've had my supper and had my supper and had my supper and all. I've heard the story of Cinderella and how she went to the ball. I've cleaned my teeth and I've said my prayers, and I've cleaned and said them right. And they've all of them been and kissed me lots. They've all of them said good night. So here I am in the dark alone. There's nobody here to see. I think to myself, I play to myself, and nobody knows what I say to myself. Here I am in the dark alone. What is it going to be? I can think whatever I like to think. I can play whatever I like to play. I can laugh whatever I like to laugh. There's nobody here but me. I'm talking to a rabbit. I'm talking to the sun. I think I am 100. I'm 1. I'm lying in a forest. I'm lying in a cave. I'm talking to a dragon. I'm brave. I'm lying on my left side. I'm lying on my right. I'll play a lot tomorrow. I'll think a lot tomorrow. I'll laugh a lot tomorrow. Hi-ho. Good night. He finally got to sleep. That's the end of In the Dark by AA Milne. Our story today is called An Evening at Alfie's, and it's by Shirley Hughes. We read lots of Alfie stories, so I'm sure you'll recognize this guy. Why is he playing in the water? An Evening at Alfie's. One cold winter evening, see the full moon? Alfie and his little sister, Annie Rose, were all ready for bed. Mum and Dad were all ready to go out, and Mrs. McNally's Maureen was in the living room. She had come to look after Alfie and Annie Rose while Mum and Dad went to a party. Alfie and Maureen waved goodbye to them from the window. Annie Rose was already in her cot. Soon she settled down and went to sleep. Alfie liked Maureen. She always read him a story when she came to babysit. Tonight, Alfie wanted the story about Noah and his ark full of animals. Alfie liked to hear how the rain came drip, 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 and then splash, 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 and then rushing everywhere until the whole world was covered with water. When Maureen had finished the story, it was time for Alfie to go to bed. She came upstairs to tuck him up. They had to be very quiet and talk in whispers in case they woke up Annie Rose. Maureen gave Alfie a good-night hug and went off downstairs, leaving the door a little bit open. Alfie didn't feel sleepy. He lay in bed looking at the patch of light on the ceiling. For a long time, all was quiet. Then he heard a funny noise outside on the landing. Alfie sat up. The noise was just outside his door. Drip, drip, drip. Soon it got quicker. It changed to drip, 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 drip. It was getting louder too. Alfie got out of bed and peeped around the door. There was a puddle on the floor. He looked up. Water was splashing into the puddle from the ceiling. Drip, 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 drip. It was raining inside the house. Alfie went downstairs. Maureen was doing her homework in front of the television. It's raining on the landing, Alfie told her. Alfie and Maureen went back upstairs. The puddle was getting bigger. The drip, 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 drip had turned into a splash, splash, splash. Looks like a burst pipe, said Maureen. A plumber was one of the things she wanted to be when she left school. Better get a bucket, she said. So Alfie showed her where the bucket was kept, in the kitchen cupboard with all the brushes and brooms. But now the water was dripping down in another place. Alfie and Maureen found 2 of Mum's big mixing bowls and put them underneath the drips. Maureen got on the telephone to her mum. The McNallys lived just across the street. Mrs. McNally was there in a moment. Oh dear, it's ruining your mother's floor, cried Mrs. McNally. Fetch some floor cloths, Maureen. Just then Annie Rose woke up and began to cry. Shh, shh, there, said Mrs. McNally, bending over her cot. But Annie Rose only looked at her and cried louder. Mrs. McNally ran back out to the landing. She and Maureen tried to mop up the water, but now the drips were coming from lots of different places. Splash, splash, splash. We ought to turn the water off from the main, said Maureen, but I don't know how you do it. I think I'd better fetch Dad. While she was gone, Mrs. McNally mopped and emptied brimming bowls, and in between mopping and emptying she ran to try to comfort Annie Rose. But Annie Rose went on crying and crying. The drips on the landing came faster and faster. Now there were a lot of puddles on the floor. Alfie paddled in them for a while. It was quite fun, but the water was very cold. He thought that soon perhaps the whole street would be covered with water, and they would all have to float away in a boat, like Noah's Ark. Soon Maureen came running upstairs with Mr. McNally close behind her, wearing his bedroom slippers. What's all this, then? Said Mr. McNally, looking at all the water pouring down. He put his head round the bedroom door. He and Annie Rose were old friends. Dear, what's all this, then? He said in a very kind voice. Then he went downstairs and found a large sort of tap under the stairs and turned it off just like that. So that's where it was, said Maureen. Then the water stopped pouring down through the ceiling, splash, 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 and became a drip, 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 and then a drip, 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 and then it stopped altogether. Oh, thank goodness for that, said Mrs. McNally. I'll know how to do it next time, said Maureen. But Annie Rose was still crying. Alfie went into the bedroom to see if he could cheer her up. Tears were rolling down her cheeks and soaking into her blanket. Don't cry, Annie Rose, said Alfie, and he put his hand through the bars of her cot and patted her very gently as he had seen Mum do sometimes. He's a kind big brother. Annie Rose still wore nappies at night. Annie Rose is wet, Alfie told everyone, and her bed's wet too. I expect that's why she's crying. Why, so she is, poor little mite, said Mrs. McNally. When Annie Rose was all dry and comfortable again, Mrs. McNally put her on the living room sofa with Alfie and tucked a quilt round them. Then she gave them both a biscuit. Annie Rose was quite cheerful now. She got very friendly with Mr. McNally, and he let her play a game with him, taking off his glasses and putting them on again. Then she sucked her thumb and leaned up against Alfie, and Alfie leaned up against her. When Mum and Dad came home, they were both fast asleep. Next morning, Mum told Alfie not to turn on the taps until the plumber had been to mend the burst pipe. Alfie didn't mind not having a wash. He'd had enough water the evening before to last for a long time. And that's the end of an evening at Alfie's. Thank you for joining me for story time today. I love reading to you, and I can't wait to read to you again next week. Bye-bye.